like Ruth Sent Us and Jane's Revenge, openly organized campaigns of harassment at the homes of justices, you sat on your hands. When these same groups posted online information about where the justices worship, or their home addresses, or where their kids went to school, you again sat on your hands and did nothing. Your failure to act to protect the safety of the justices and their families was an obvious product of political bias. You agree with Roe versus Wade. You disagree with the Dobbs decision. And the Department of Justice under this president was perfectly happy to refuse to enforce the law and allow threats of violence. And as you know, those threats finally materialized.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is FirstReactionTv, and we have a spicy one today. Ted Cruz questions Attorney General Merrick Garland. This one gets pretty heated. You know, it's another committee hearing, and they're basically going over once again the political biases of places like the Attorney General's office. You know, they've been going over about it, you know, with stuff with the FBI for the last couple years as well. And, you know, they're just trying to get down to where, like, they're saying, hey, we want, you know, our criminal justice system to be non-biased, regardless of what stances you have. The law should apply to everybody the same. And they're basically, you know, getting into the left wing basically influencing, you know, a lot of these, you know, places that should be 100% even keel, you know, down the middle. So we're gonna watch Ted Cruz ask him some questions here.
Oh, I told just to alert the members, and Senator Cruz is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General, welcome. Thank you. As you know, as I observed at your confirmation hearing, you had built a long record on the Federal Court of Appeals and a reputation of being relatively nonpartisan. And so I had hopes that your tenure as Attorney General would continue that record. I have to say I'm deeply disappointed in what the last 2 years have shown. In my judgment, the Department of Justice has been politicized to the greatest extent I've ever seen in this country. And it has done a discredit to the Department of Justice, to the FBI, and to the administration of law in this country. Let me start with a simple question. General Garland, is it a federal crime to protest outside of a judge's home with the intent of influencing that judge as to a pending case?
The answer to that is yes, but I also want to at least respond to your characterization of the department, which I vigorously disagree with. I believe the men and women of the department pursue their work every single day in a nonpartisan and an appropriate way.
General Garland, there are thousands of men and women who do that, and I'll tell you, I hear from prosecutors at the Department of Justice, I hear from agents at the FBI who are angry that it is treated as the enforcement arm for the DNC instead of upholding the law in a fair and even-handed manner. So you are right, there are thousands of men and women that are doing the job, but it is the political leadership that you're responsible for. So you just said, yes, it's a crime to protest at the home of a judge. Same goes for jurors, by the way, with the intent of influencing a case. But in the wake of the leak of the Dobbs decision, when rioters descended on the homes of 6 Supreme Court justices, night after night after night, you did nothing. When extremist groups like Ruth Sent Us and Jane's Revenge openly organized campaigns of harassment at the homes of justices, you sat on your hands. When these same groups posted online information.
Yeah, I want to go ahead and just stop this here because, like, this is some, like, serious, you know, like, this is some serious stuff. And it's, like, unheard of stuff, too. You know, the United States Supreme Court is the third branch of government we have. And they have one of the highest powers and some of the most, important responsibilities in our entire country. And it has always been illegal. And I think this is, for local judges even, like, like going down to the smallest level of judges that you can get, that you can't have people outside their houses. Like imagine if you were convicted or accused of a crime, or any of these big murder trials, or money scam trials going on. Imagine if you were just allowed to go outside the judge's house and yell and threaten him and do whatever you want to influence it. So you try to just so you get your way. Like imagine if our country was allowed to do that. Like you can protest and have free speech and do anything you want, but you can't go to these people's houses and threaten them or scare them or do anything in a manner, like this is crazyville. Like this is crazy town. And I wanted to look these groups up to see like what it was, to see if it was like true, just like if it was a bunch of peaceful people, protesting, or what it was. So I looked up this Jane's Revenge group that he just said they openly said that they were there. They went to the Supreme Justice's houses. On their page, the first sentence describing what their group is that they are a militant pro-abortion rights group, and they are counter-extremism. So one, that just makes no sense. You cannot be a militant group and then at the same time call yourself a counter-extremist group. Like that's just, like some of these left-wing ideologies right now, it's just, they're in a spot here where like they just think no matter what, if something's not their way, they have a right to do whatever they want. And that, violating one of the most sacred things in our country, like the United States Supreme Court, that doesn't mean anything to them. Like, it means nothing. We'll go threaten them. We'll go protest at their homes, like with children and families, and just trying to, because at this time, like when they were doing this, the decision didn't even come out yet. There was a leak and there was wind that it might keep. So they went to these people's houses to strictly tell them, you better not overturn this or we're coming for you. Like, I don't think people realize how bad this is and how insane this is. Like, could you imagine if this was like a conservative group, and the names that you would hear, and it would be right-wing extremists, white nationalists. Like if there'd be 10 black people and 10 white people in a crowd together, all of them conservatives, they would just be a white nationalist group, period. Like it wouldn't matter. Like that's just what they'd be called. And they'd probably all get arrested and go to jail. Like you can't do this kind of stuff. None of these people got in trouble. None of them. And that's where Senator Cruz is coming in with this, because regardless of which side you stand on, like you can't let this stuff happen for the benefit of the country. No matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican, you cannot have political bias in your attorney general's office where they just flat out won't arrest the people, because you know what, it might get them bad press. They arrested people, so now the attorney general's office is for abortion. They're for, like, and the fact is, it's just not the case. Like they need to follow the law, and the law applies to everybody. And I think this is one of the highest sins that you could commit on United States ground as far as what things are acceptable in society, and this isn't one of them. Because like I said, just imagine this the whole way down to your local judges and your local courthouses. If people were allowed to go to these judges' houses and do whatever they want to them, harass them, follow them, stalk them, just so they would get their way in a court case. Like, that's not how the law is applied to, to things. And I think this is bad. like seriously bad. And Cruz comes after him, and he should. Like, I think he has every right to come after him here.
Information about where the justices worship, or their home addresses, or where their kids went to school, you again sat on your hands and did nothing. Your failure to act to protect the safety of the justices and their families was an obvious product of political bias. You agree with Roe versus Wade. You disagree with the Dobbs decision. And the Department of Justice under this president was perfectly happy to refuse to enforce the law and allow threats of violence. And as you know, those threats finally materialized with Nicholas Roski, a 26-year-old man from California who traveled across the country, was arrested outside the home of Justice Kavanaugh, armed with a handgun, a knife, and burglary tools. And he said he came there to kill Justice Kavanaugh because he was enraged by the leaked opinion.
Yeah, I mean, so like once again, a left-wing, extremist, which it happens, right? Like these people are crazy, okay? How many times have you heard that on CNN? How many times have you heard that phrase on MSNBC? Left-wing extremism, bad extremism groups, left-wing extremists. When do we hear that? Do you think that man was branded a white nationalist or a racist? Like, do you think he was called any of those things? And once again, it's just because of the political affiliation he has. Like, explain that one to me.
Now, of course, you're prosecuting that individual for attempted murder, but did you bring even a single case to enforce this law, or did the Department of Justice decide this law doesn't apply if it's harassing justices for an opinion we don't like?
I think it's appalling.
When the Dobbs draft was leaked, I did something no Attorney General in the history of the department had ever done before. For the first time in history, I ordered United States Marshals 24/7 to defend every residence of every justice.
Merrick Garland is a...
I think that this is such a flat-out tool bag answer that with that, with the case that, I just laid out, everything going on, like people calling themselves militant groups, militant extremists at a Supreme Court justice's house, he says that never before in the history I put out federal marshals to protect them. He had to protect them because he didn't arrest anybody. He didn't prosecute or arrest a single person that went and was there doing this to these justices. But then he says that, well, he put people there to protect them. It doesn't matter if you put people there to protect them. You didn't follow the law. Like, I don't know. To me, like, this one is pretty black and white. Like, this isn't, well, there's a little gray area in the law here. No, like, these people were doing illegal stuff. And he said, well, I had to put more people out there. Well, no kidding you did. Like, you let them get away with it. You let a self-proclaimed militant extremism pro-abortion rights group harass a justice's home, and like, yeah, no kidding, you had to, put people there to protect them because you didn't follow the laws.
The judge, you're familiar with asking counsel to answer a question.
I am answering.
Has the Department of Justice enforced this statute? Have you brought a single case against any of these protesters threatening the justices under 18 U.S.C. Section 1507? Have you brought even one?
Senator, you asked me whether I sat on my hands, and quite the opposite. I sent 70 United States Marshals.
Let me try again.
To defend. And
has the Department of Justice brought even a single case under this statute? It's a yes/no question. It's not a give a speech on the other things you did.
The job of the United States Marshals is to defend the lives
So
of
the answer is no.
is to defend the lives of the justices, and that's their number one priority. They have
Why are
full,
you unwilling to say no? The answer is no. You know it's no. I know it's no. Everyone in this hearing room knows it's no. You're not willing to answer a question. Have you brought a case under this statute? Yes or no?
as far as I know, we haven't, and what we have done is defended the lives of the justices with
So
over
how do
70
you
U.S.
decide?
Marshals.
How do you decide which criminal statutes the DOJ enforces and which one it doesn't?
The United States Marshals know that they have full
Okay,
authority.
I recognize you want to give a separate speech.
No, I don't want to
How
give a
do you decide which statutes you enforce and which ones you don't?
The marshals on scene make that determination in light of the priority of
The
defense.
marshals do not make a determination over whether to prosecute you, the attorney general.
Yeah, look, they get that order ahead of time. Like, if you have to do what this guy just said, never before in the history of the United States did anyone have to, put out 70 marshals to protect the judges. Like, they had orders then. Like, they got sent there with orders. So your orders were to go there and either post up on their porch, to go in their houses and sleep there, whatever it was. But if they did not get orders to go there and arrest everybody, like, someone had to order them or tell them what to do. And, like, once again, this is a pretty simple, and, like, the fact that he's getting real slippery and snaky about not even saying, like, no, of course we didn't charge anyone. Like, he knows he's wrong, and whenever people start doing the rope-a-dope, this stuff is just so straightforward, and Cruz is getting fired up here, and he should be. Like, someone needs to stand up for these people. Like, no matter, once again, if you're a Democrat or not, like, you need to understand that the government needs people like Ted Cruz to call these guys out. Like, these people need to be held accountable for their decisions. You can't let people get away with this kind of stuff, man. Like, it would we're going to let the U.S., Supreme Court Justice's house just turn into CVS, where we're just going to go there and loot the shit. Take whatever you want, harass whoever you want. Like, we can't let we can't let shit get to where CVS is, okay? Where everything's locked up behind a glass door. Like, that's not how you can let this country develop, man. Like, that's bad, bad, bad. And regardless of how you feel about Ted Cruz, this guy is standing up for that. He's standing up for something, at least.
And will make a determination, and you spent 20 years as a judge, and you're perfectly content with justices being afraid for their children's lives, and you did nothing to prosecute it. Let's shift to another area.
Can I answer the question?
No, you
The Attorney
cannot. You
General-
have refused to answer the
I am
question.
answering your question. The
How did
Attorney
you
General
choose
does not decide whether to arrest.
How did you choose not to enforce this statute?
The marshals on scene.
Marshals don't make that decision.
They do make the decision of whether to make an
Prosecute
arrest.
someone? No, they don't.
If they make
Marshals do not have prosecution
If they make an arrest,
All right,
then it goes
let's
to the
change
marshals.
topics because our time is limited. We've also seen across the country violent attacks to pregnancy centers by similar left-wing terrorist groups, including one graffiti of a firebomb building said Jane was here. There have been attacks all over the country. And yet, the Department of Justice has not brought these violent criminals to justice. You contrast that. If you're a violent criminal and you attack a crisis pregnancy center, that is not a priority in the Biden Department of Justice. Contrast that to Mark Houck, who's a pro-life activist. He's a sidewalk counselor. And he had an altercation with someone who allegedly interfered with his son's personal space and threatened his son, and he pushed him. Now, in an ordinary world, pushing someone would be maybe a simple misdemeanor assault, but not under the Biden Department of Justice. If you're a pro-life activist, what can you expect? Well, in this instance, according to Mr. Houck's wife, 24 agents clad in body armor and ballistic helmets and shields and a battering ram showed up at his house.
He does have a riot shield, don't he? Oh my goodness. See, like, once again, like, I don't know the background of this story. I have no clue if this is true. But, like, once again, this just, even public perception matters, you know, like, especially with places like that deal in with anything to do with the law, you know, upholding the law. Perception matters, you know. And if stuff like this is the case, where you send dudes in riot gear and riot shields to some dude's home on a weekend, I mean, if you can't really see the difference there, then I mean, like, that perception matters. Like, it matters. It's,
Pointing rifles at his family. Why do you send 24 agents in body armor to arrest a sidewalk counselor who happens to be pro-life, but you don't devote resources to prosecute people who are violently firebombing crisis pregnancies?
It is a priority of the department to prosecute and investigate and find the people who are doing those firebombings. They are doing it at night and in secret. So, and we have found one group which we did prosecute.
You found one. How many have there been? How many attacks?
There have been a lot, and if you have any information specifically as to who those people are, we would be glad. We would be glad to have that.
that's actually the first time I've ever heard, like, anyone in government say that there have been a lot of attacks on pro-life, I don't know if you want to call them senators or not, but, like, just same thing with that. Like, how much do you hear that in the news? You know, it's always like a one-sided story. It's abortion rights. I have a right to do this. I have a right to do this. Right-wing extremists, and, like, where are all these stories of the conservatives being attacked? Like, he literally just said there's been a lot of cases. The Attorney General of the United States, how many have you heard of? Because up until Senator Cruz held up that sign, I had no clue about firebombings. How many of those have you heard of? Like, that's where we live right now. It really seems like it's tipping one way. And look, this whole discussion, to me, and in my opinion, is regardless of what you believe, pro-abortion, not for whatever. Like, this has nothing to do with abortion, in my opinion. At least what I'm talking about. This has to do with the law. Okay? I am not standing up for one side or the other, pro-abortion, against abortion, for, like, nothing to do with it. This is a completely, separate conversation from that. This is about the Attorney General and him following the law and him not showing bias to a certain political party. That's what this conversation is about.
20 agents go into Mr. Houck's house, and he offered to turn himself in through counsel, but you didn't want that. The Department of Justice wanted to make a show of it. Did you personally authorize it? And do you want to apologize to Mrs. Houck and her 7 children for being terrorized?
The decisions about how to do that are made at the level of the FBI agents on scene.
Did you know about it?
I did not know about it until the way you're describing it, and my understanding is the FBI disagrees with that description.
Was it a mistake?
Senator's time has expired. I'm going to allow the witness
They didn't have a riot shield.
to respond to any of the questions that were asked.
Was it a mistake?
I'm going to chair the committee, Senator. I'm sorry you're not.
You said you'd allow him to respond. I repeated the question I asked, which is, was it a...
What up? See, stuff like that, man. What a petty little thing to say. Senator Cruz repeated his question when he just said he'd let him answer the question.
Chair the committee, Senator. I'm sorry you're not. Senator's time has expired. I'm going to allow the witness to respond to any of the questions that were asked.
Was it a mistake?
I'm going to chair the committee, Senator. I'm sorry you're not.
I'm going to chair the committee,
You said
Senator.
you'd allow
Sorry
him to
you're
respond. I
not.
repeated the question I asked, which is, was it a mistake to send 20 agents to arrest him at the crack of dawn?
You had your time and more
You just
than
said
any-
you're going to allow him to
my
respond.
God.
You just said, I'm going to allow him to respond to the question, so I repeated the question. Was it a mistake?
You
That
ask
was the pending
questions you want to
question.
ask, I'll ask the questions I want.
That's the question I had already asked.
Well,
You just said you'd let him respond.
I'm going to let him respond right
Good.
now. Please don't interrupt him. Thank you.
The decisions about how to do tactical arrests are made by the FBI agents in the field. The FBI has publicly stated that it disagrees with the description you gave of what happened in that example. That's the best I can answer.
At this point,
things got a little heated there. I have a feeling that there's probably more to this day, and there's probably going to be some more clips coming out here with Merrick Garland. Laws weren't followed, laws were completely ignored, and on one end of a political party, nobody got punished. If that's not biased, I don't know what is then. Like, I truly don't. So, I think I think today's going to be a heated day. I think things are going to get pretty crazy, and there's probably going to be some more videos coming out. But I appreciate you watching. Please subscribe if you like this video. If you have anything to say, comment. I appreciate you watching. Peace.